Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Hoskin, Chair of the Housing Advisory Board. This is our monthly meeting. Today is March 25th, 2026. We'll do a roll call. Laura Chavez. Here. Chip Hennessy.
Here.
Philip.
Just logged in.
Awesome. Philip Ogren.
Present.
Philip. Awesome. And Michael Lucchese, who is not here, but this is his official last board meeting. But he's not here. And then we have ML, our planning board liaison, and we have 3 new board members that will be sworn in next month. We have David Garabed, Brendan Selby. Okay, welcome. And we have a test. We have a test. Yes, test. We do have a test. Anyway, okay. So on tonight's agenda, we'll go over approval of minutes, and we'll have time for public participation matters from the board, which includes a presentation of the Boulder Valley Comp Plan. We'll have some discussion around that. We'll review the HAB work plan. Any matters from the staff. We'll have time for final thoughts or suggestions, and then adjourn by 9. All right. So the minutes, we have 2 different sets of minutes. We have, bless you, the January 28th, 2026 minutes. Were there any comments or further corrections to make? Can we just approve them both at the same time? Perfect. So February 25th, 2026 minutes. Any comments or corrections that need to be made? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve both January and February minutes.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor? None opposed? Approved. Okay. Public participation. Is there anybody? Tiffany online?
We've got several members of the public. Hands raised.
There are hands raised.
More than one?
Okay, will you read the rules?
I will. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you.
All right, I wasn't expecting folks from the public. Let's be really excited about the agenda. All right, so the city has co-created with the community a vision for productive, meaningful civic engagement. And this vision supports the physical and emotional safety for pretty much everybody. For more information, you can go to our website. The following examples, decorum, are found in the Boulder Revised Code. Other guidelines that support the vision. They will be upheld during this meeting by our chair. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation, obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech or behavior that disrupt or otherwise impede the ability to conduct the meeting are also prohibited. And participants, we are required to use the name that they were commonly known by, and individuals must display their full name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted. That's it.
So first public commenter is William Sweeney. William, you should be allowed to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much and good evening. I am William Sweeney. I live here in Boulder and I am an executive with the Bridge House, a public charity that supports persons who are exiting homelessness through employment and housing. I first want to apologize. Our CEO was invited to speak in this time and he is unable to attend tonight and asked me to attend on his behalf. I've been with the Bridge House, associated with the Bridge House for about 20 of its 30 years. And before that, I have worked with various homeless matters for a couple of decades before that. So I'm familiar with the not only the scene of the homelessness scene in Boulder, but in the Denver metro area generally. Bridge House is pleased to have gotten to where it has gotten to. We started 30 years ago in a ramshackle house, now destroyed, over near Boulder High School. At that time, the niche that we were fulfilling was some sort of a day meeting, day services center for unhoused purposes. The Boulder Shelter had, at that point, not its new building, but a prior building. And they were open only at night. And so we began offering day services. We went forward from there. The business grew along with the population of unhoused people. We moved into an outbuilding called the Carriage House on the campus of First United Church, FCC. And we at that point changed our name to Carriage House, and we merged with another group called Community Table Dinner, which had been feeding weeknight dinners to anyone who needed a dinner. And we have continued that service. That began in 1996, and we have continued it now right to today. So we continue to serve every weeknight, usually sited at a downtown congregation. Our principal work is our program called Ready to Work. Ready to Work is designed for people who are self-motivated, ready to exit homelessness, and who have a vision for how they want to re-enter society. We provide them with up to a year of housing and training.
Michael?
We provide them with up to a year of housing and training.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So
Yes.
during the public comment, people are limited to 3 minutes. And that 3 minutes goes really fast. I'm sorry about that. But thank you for reminding us that you're here and starting on the history. I would encourage you and the CEO, if you have anything in particular that you would like HAB to be thinking about or be reminded of in regards to housing solutions for the homelessness or anything housing related, you're welcome to reach out to us via email. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We will. And I was part of the drafting of the papers that were joint between HAB and HRC a few years ago. And we still stand by those papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Can I make a comment and ask a question?
Yeah.
I just want to also reiterate, thank you for your service. I lived near the current location that's at the nearby the Moorhead Post Office for years before I realized what was in that building. I found that out through a wonderful bike to work day booth that you had set up there, and had a really nice conversation with someone outside serving treats to people cycling to work. So thank you for that. My question is, did you have anything specific you wanted to ask to HAB tonight?
No, we are here because Stephen invited us to make this presentation.
Oh, gotcha.
But we're more than pleased to speak up.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for him?
No, thank you for speaking, and we encourage all members of the public to speak. I think, the role of these advisory boards and commissions as Boulder is for us to listen to the public and then, formulate that into advice to city council and the city manager. So if you have any ideas or thoughts on, what the city is doing well, what the city perhaps is not doing well, and where the city can improve in the future, those are the sorts of comments in the future we encourage you to come back and to provide to us so we can discuss it and discuss policy and advise city council and the city manager in that regard.
Thank you very much. We will do so.
Thank you.
There are no other hands raised for public comment. Take that back. Lynn Siegel,
Who wrote the 602 comment?
board secretary.
Is that her name, Board? Is it a he or she? And their name is Board Secretary? Who is the person that wrote the 602 comment, please?
It's Tiffany Baller. Do you have board comments, Lynn?
Thank you for finally answering. It took 30 seconds. Yeah. The city of Boulder administered a energy retrofit on my house. After 25 years, I've been waiting to get geothermal heat pump. And I thought I was maybe going to have a little bit of warmth for a little bit of time. I'm almost 73, but I guess not, because they didn't allow me to have anything to do with the retrofit, and it's completely botched. Every single part of it is I don't use. It's $55,000 worth of stuff that I waited a year to determine if I was even eligible for. So it's been 2 years and 5 months, and they haven't fixed it yet. And I'm completely disgusted. Someone brought up, like, if you have any problems with the city. Yeah, I do. Housing. You're the Housing Advisory Board. I'm housed, but I'm freezing cold all winter. And I'm hot in the summer. I'm 54 degrees to keep my water from freezing. And in the part of the house where I live, I'm about 40 degrees in the winter. So that's not really living. I just hibernate. And I'd rather not. But the city cannot, completely incompetent. The city is not an HVAC vendor. And yet they left me out of my own retrofit. Are you curious why? Probably not. But I'll tell you why. Because the county Energy Smart I was doing 10 years ago for an energy retrofit. And I talked to one of the vendors and really liked them. And checked back with the county and they said, oh, we dropped that vendor. And I said, why? And guess what? They wouldn't tell me. So I called the vendor and I found out why. Corruption. They were having a solar install that they were forcing the vendor to do against the vendor's own liability. So I can't trust anybody. Done.
Thank you, Lynn. Did anybody have any questions for Lynn? Okay.
And then we have Mark Fearer.
Okay.
Mark, can
Howdy,
you hear us?
folks. I assume you can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Congratulations to the new board members that are coming on. It'll be nice to see the room full again when at the next meeting you've got more members. My quick comment is I attended the last planning board meeting a few days ago. They had a very long and interesting discussion on the Area 3 reserve, especially around housing and the kind of housing and whether or not they should even continue with their recommendations to the city. I don't know if you all have been monitoring that, but that's something I would encourage you all to do is and be part of the discussion when it gets to that point. It's going to be a while if it moves forward, and there's still an if to that. But there's certainly a lot of discussion about the kind of housing that they want to have there and how they're going to get it. So I'd love to see some collaboration between you and the planning board perhaps on that. That's it. Thanks.
Mark, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You're on is it the Tenant Advisory Committee?
Good memory. Yes, that's exactly the name of it.
Okay. My question for you is if the Area 3 does move along, is there a particular type of housing that TAC would support or be interested in seeing being created?
Well, I have to see and of course I don't speak on on behalf of TAC, but TAC is really about tenants, and we advise about eviction issues because that's our main issue. Although we're trying to get to more issues beyond eviction, but I do sit on the Boulder Housing Partners Board of Commissioners, and that has more relevancy, I'd say, to the kind of housing we'd like to see there. Although we have not discussed it at all, I should say, BHP. But if it does get to a point where it's going to go forward, then I think we will have some recommendations, is my guess. But again, we haven't talked about that at all. But that's where the discussions would probably happen.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Sure.
Anybody else have questions for Mark? All right. Anybody else? Tiffany with a hand raised? Nope. All right. I'll close this portion of public participation. Next up, matters from the board. Our task.
One and only. See if I can do this right. Second. I apologize.
That's not it?
Oh, there. Okay, great. I was like, it wasn't showing up back behind me for a second. Okay. Perfect. Hello, everyone. Good evening.
No, it's showing your notes.
Oh my
Which is
God.
interesting. How did you?
I don't know. This is new. Sorry. Let's try this again.
Did it?
Great. Now I don't see my notes on my screen.
You don't need to present demo.
Okay. Zoom changes things all the time.
I know, I'm so used to Teams. Okay. So if I share. To present. And typically, I do that, but then
That's in presenter. That's in presenter mode for the viewers online. I'll just point out.
okay, well, maybe I'll just spit on it then.
That's if you send me the link, I could present
Okay,
your presentation mode, and then you can follow along in your notes. Do you want to do that?
sure. Sorry about that. Okay. There you go.
All right, why don't you get started while I pull it up?
Great. All right. Good evening, HAB members. Sorry for the delay, but my name is Tess Shorn and I'm a city planner with the comprehensive planning team in planning and development services. And I'm thrilled to be here today to share an update on where we are at the comprehensive planning update process and also give you an overview of the draft plan that was just released to the public.
Really close.
It's making me feel better too. All right, so for tonight's agenda, we will be giving you a quick project update, sharing where we're at in the process, walking you through the draft comprehensive plan, kind of what's changed, what's evolved, and how we've structured it. And then also showing you how to review the full draft plan online. And then finally, we want your feedback on the draft before we prepare that recommended draft for adoption. As a reminder, the key questions for tonight are, does the draft plan overall reflect the community and the Housing Advisory Board's priorities and aspirations related to housing in the Boulder Valley? Which components of the draft plan does the board strongly support? And does the board recommend any revision to the draft plan? Okay, so I just want to take a moment and remind everyone what the role of boards and commissions are in this process. Boards serve in an advisory capacity. Your role is really important. You help us identify areas of focus for policy and land use guidance. You help staff determine where policies may need refinement, where there are gaps, and where there is or isn't alignment with city's housing goals. Your feedback also helps shape any recommended changes to the plan. And during the adoption process, you have the opportunity to provide a formal recommendations to planning board and city council if you so choose, which become part of the public record and help inform their deliberations. And just as a reminder, the 4 formal adopting bodies for the comprehensive plan are City Council, City Planning Board, the County Planning Commission, and the Board of County Commissioners. So now that we've laid the groundwork on where we are in the process, we want to take a quick look back on the process as a whole. In October of 2024, we began with a Boulder Today, which focused on orienting community members to the project and understanding current conditions, grounding the work in data, trends, and what we're experiencing as a community. From there, we moved into a Boulder Tomorrow in early 2025, where we worked with community members to determine a shared vision and identify priorities. That phase was about listening and understanding to what people want Boulder to become. Next came a Boulder Direction, where we translated that vision into policy options and a preferred direction. This is where staff discuss trade-offs with community members and policymakers. It is also the phase where key choices began to take shape. And now we're in a Boulder Future. The phase started in January, and we've taken all that we've learned from all the previous phases and prepared the draft plan that we are now asking community members, boards like yourself, and policymakers to review so we can make final refinements before the final adoption process occurs this summer, starting in June. So first, let's do a quick run through and kind of highlight again what the comprehensive plan is and where it sits in the grand scheme of things so we're all on the same page. It documents and sets the community's 20-year vision for the Boulder Valley, providing long-term direction for how we grow, change, and invest over time. It is intentionally broad because it guides decisions from many different city and county programs and actions across a variety of subject areas. It acts as a framework to inform development, sub-community, and department plans, as well as budgeting and zoning decisions. The comprehensive plan is not meant to be extremely technical in nature and does not replace these other tools, which are meant to be the places where policy and land use strategies are operationalized and details of exactly how to work towards or reach the community vision are worked out. In short, it's our roadmap for long-term evolution of Boulder Valley, guiding decisions, future work, and community expectations. As we mentioned when we were last with you, which I know we have some new board members, but we are focusing on several key goals for this major update. We want the plan to be clearer and more straightforward, so we are limiting redundancy and unnecessary complexity. We are also simplifying language to make the plan easier to read and understand for everyone, whether community members, developers, staff, or policymakers. We are ensuring that the plan is focused on that 300,000 foot level, setting direction and providing a policy and land use foundation without prescriptively stipulating exactly how all departments meet the plan vision. We are working to balance aspiration and action, so the plans inspires the community, but also points to improvements we'd like to see. And finally, we're making the plan more adaptable and flexible so it can respond to changing conditions over time, staying relevant to our needs, technologies, and priorities as they evolve.
Tess, you mentioned this is a 20-year look ahead.
Mhm.
Is the plan updated every 5 years, 10 years?
So it has a major update every 10 years, and then every 5 years between those 10-year updates, we do a minor update and revisit it. So before I share what's in the draft with you, I just wanted to mention that your feedback on and Housing and Human Services staff's input has been instrumental in helping us shape the direction of the plan. Some key themes you raised when we last discussed the update with you back in September of 2025 included strong overall support for the new direction of the land use map, desire for clear communication about next steps, especially potential zoning updates and what HAB's role would be moving forward, board enthusiasm for flexibility, creativity, and community-oriented potential this approach would introduce. We took this feedback along with community member input and policymaker direction to prepare the draft. And that was posted on March 3rd and will be up for public comment through April 6th. And we're hoping you've had a chance to take a look at the project website and the draft itself. But if you haven't, no worries. Later in this presentation, I'll walk you through how to access it online. So moving on to a summary of the contents of the plan. We entered this project with a goal to make it the most inclusive engagement effort to date. We had 69 engagement opportunities of all shapes and sizes. And from all this engagement and our fellow departments' input, the draft plan bloomed. The feedback received, next slide. The feedback received from community members helped shape the community vision for the Boulder Valley. At its heart, it's about working together to ensure everyone belongs, creating opportunities for all who live, work, or visit here, and sustaining the health of our community and environment for generations to come. This vision guides every aspect of the plan, from policies to actions, and keeps us focused on what matters most to our community. So we heard a lot of ideas from the community throughout this process, and here are some of the major ideas, kind of new ideas we're carrying forward and emphasizing in this new draft plan. There was generally a desire for increased social connection as well as connection to the natural world, which pushed forward many of policies and land use ideas you can see above. Next slide. While in many ways we are reimagining the plan and updating its goals, some foundations remain as strong as ever. We continue to value a compact community surrounded by open space, protecting the lands, natural systems, and scenic vistas that make Boulder so unique. Strong neighborhoods and a sense of place remain central, giving residents a connection to their community. Climate leadership and environmental stewardship continue to guide our decisions, reinforcing our commitment to sustainability. And collaboration between city and county remains key, ensuring that our planning is coordinated and serves the broader community effectively. The draft plan has two major components to it, the policies and the future land use. First, I will focus on the policies. And as a reminder, we were guided by these three main principles when drafting these policies. Through work with community members and other city and county departments, we were able to create a list of 102 policies, which are clear, straightforward, and resilient. They focus on the what and why while leaving space for other city departments, policymakers, and community members to figure out the how. Here are just a taste of the many housing related policies within the draft comprehensive plan. Just a little preview, there's plenty more to read in the plan itself. But I did want to highlight, next slide, that this 15-minute neighborhood policy, which came from the tremendous work done by Boulder's first ever community assembly, which was one of our big engagement efforts with this plan. And they provided us at the city excellent groundwork to continue to push this idea forward. And we folded many of their ideas into many policies and land use changes we implemented in this plan. Moving on to the land use strategy. So this section of the draft plan, we had, just as a reminder, we had some goals for this section. And it was to right size, differentiate, and create adaptability. The former land use map had 26 land use designations, and this new draft map now has 4 classes and a total of 12 designations. And we hope the new structure provides community members and decision makers clarity and expectations, while also allowing space for adaptability to unique needs in a variety of locations. So each designation in the plan has a full page description, like the one you see here. And this description says what it is, why it matters, and what you can expect. And in the what you can expect section, there are sections on uses, both primary and supporting, urban design, and mobility. These descriptions are meant to give the user an understanding of the general feel, and expectations in these different areas of the city, while also not being overly prescriptive. And then the renderings also give a real life feel too. So linking land use and policy, the future land use strategy is very closely tied with the plan's policy. And here's an example of how these two components, policy and future land use, are linked in to create the future that reflects the community's vision. This is an example along Broadway, which is basically right where we are right now. And it includes the Western City campus and the Ideal Market area. It envisions an active community hub supported by neighborhood 1 and 2 and includes greenway and park systems. This approach creates the opportunity to place more people closer to the goods and services, transportation options, and other amenities. And this makeup is supported by and helps to implement policies on 15-minute neighborhoods, integrated land use and transportation, vital and productive retail base, housing diversity and supply, as well as many others. So what happens next? The implementation of the plan will unfold over time, and we have an implementation chapter in the plan as well. So this plan is as I said before, is a 20-year plan. So change will happen gradually, guided by zoning and other regulatory updates, area and sub-community plans, and other capital investments. Every city and county department has a role, and partnerships within the community are essential to making it work. The plan also connects to the citywide strategic plan to ensure coordinated action. Ultimately, this sets the direction, and its future decisions will bring it to life. So we want to hear from you as well as all the community. And I just want to, who has already had a chance to look at our website and the draft plan on there? No worries if you haven't. I just want to, okay. So as soon as I finish these slides, I'll do a little demo before we go into questions, just to show you how all the online feedback works and where you can find everything. But I will continue with the slides for now. Next slide. So looking ahead, there are several key milestones before the plan is adopted. This includes upcoming meetings with all 4 approval bodies, where the plan will be reviewed, discussed, and refined, leading up to the first public hearing between City Council and Planning Board on June 4th. The window for community feedback is April 6th, and we will work to bring together all that feedback and the feedback from all the boards, including yours, to create the final adoption draft. And this is a reminder of key questions, but before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen for a second. So, see if it works now. Okay, so if you go to this website, boulderfuture.org, and these slides will be shared with you, but you can also remember the boulderfuture.org. And this has everything about our project. But on our main page, if you scroll down, you can review the draft plan. If you click on this link, that takes you to the PDF of the full draft plan that you can read through in PDF form. If you want to just respond, and then you can give feedback on that here. But then if you also want to just respond to specific focus areas of policy, you can click on here. For you all, Livable will have most of our housing policy in it. And you can share feedback, and that'll be an online survey with each policy there. And then you can also continue to scroll down for this land use review. This has the future land use strategy. So these are all of our land use descriptions. And then here's the map that you can explore. And I think this is set up really nicely, where we have side by side of the current future land use map and our proposed future land use map. And then you can scroll in and they're tied together. So you can compare side by side wherever you want in the city of what the land use that is in the current plan versus our proposed land uses. And you can provide feedback here. And then you can also look at our area 123 map and all the other maps included here. So there's a lot of different ways you and any community members can provide feedback as individuals, and then you as a board can provide a formal recommendation to council and planning board that to make it into our next memo for them would need to happen probably by your next meeting. May might be too tight, so in April, ideally. So if we
adopt a recommendation at our next board meeting, that would be able to make it into your notes. Okay.
Yeah. Any questions about this website side of things before I scroll off of it? Okay, and then a reminder of the questions. I can. So these are the key questions for you all tonight. Oh my gosh. I I give up on. And if you have any questions for me, we'll start with that, and then we'll move on to these discussion questions.
I just have a general question for you. In feedback so far that you've been receiving from the public, what are the things that people are most supportive of, and what is the most controversial?
We've heard definitely a mix, and I think people are super supportive of like the clarity and length of what they're reading. They feel like they understand it maybe more than the past iterations, which is great because that was one of our goals. So that's a positive piece of feedback. I think there is some nervousness about opening up, well, basically our getting rid of the former density limits that were part of the former land use designations. We've heard kind of both sides. We've heard concern, we've really positive feedback, so kind of a mix. I would say those are probably the two main ones. I think we've heard a little bit from some other boards that they're worried the policies got maybe too high level and not as specific as they would like to see. But we've also heard the other side. So yeah, but I would say those are the main touch points that we've been hearing.
Yeah, I skimmed through the 100-page PDF, and it seemed like a lot of like aspirational kind of wordy stuff, and like concretely, what are the big changes?
Yeah, I think one major change is this whole new approach to land use. We've been operating with a land use system where we kind of just keep adding different land uses, and it got really parcel by parcel and specific, and was conflicting or just very similar level of detail to our zoning code. So bringing this up to a higher level where we're looking at it at a neighborhood scale versus kind of looking at it parcel by parcel was a huge shift. I think our policies around the plan historically never stated explicitly stated a goal to increase and diversify housing supply. So just saying that right out is a move.
Diversity was in there.
Diversity was in there. Okay.
But increase in housing supply is definitely
that's new
in this version.
I would say the framing around equity, we've never had a policy specifically about equity before. And then also our implementation chapter has a huge section on how all of our implementation steps are intended to consider equity within those decisions. I think as far as housing with land use, the bigger changes is moving away from, we had very low density, medium density, high density, mixed density as all housing specific land uses. And now we're moving to neighborhood 1, neighborhood 2. And really neighborhood 2 are areas of the city that have the larger lots that like are appropriate for bigger apartment building design. And then you'll see on the map a lot of the city's neighborhood 1. And that would allow, because there's no density limits, so it would allow those missing middle type housing typologies to potentially happen through, zoning considerations. And so there might be opportunities for duplexes and small like house-like multifamily units that still have the neighborhood feel, but allow for more density in those areas. And also allowing commercial in residential areas. So the idea with that is people are able to maybe start smaller businesses from their homes or do other things. And it creates more of the 15-minute neighborhood idea as, you know, maybe there's some commercial that happens in these residential areas. And then all areas that were formerly, the land use was commercial are now all in some level of hub, which allows residential as a primary use along with all these commercials. So basically allowing residential in all the super commercial areas and then allowing some commercial in some of the residential areas to kind of balance those scales.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
Allowing commercial and residential areas, is that all residential areas?
Yes, it's allowed as a supporting use. So what that means is, you know, when projects come up for rezoning to city council and planning board, you know, as a supporting use, it's not going to be as more and more happen, it's not going to be the primary purpose, but, you know, it allows a little bit more flexibility in that decision making.
Okay. And then in the areas that are currently commercial that are going to become hub and residential is now going to be allowed use, are there going to be commercial requirements related to?
I think that'll come within the zoning.
Okay.
You know, I think within our zoning, we have some of those mixed use requirements for ground floor, different things, but it'll be at the discretion of that zoning.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question. Philip?
Did I just get called on?
Yes, go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, so well, I had a couple of comments that were related to Chip's questions, so maybe I'll pause. I'll circle back to that. I had one. I mean, what kind of, can I ask like very specific questions, or is this like a free for all, or are you kind of wanting more high level stuff, or?
You can ask a specific question and I will try my best to answer it.
Sure. So one question, this was something somebody else brought to my attention is with the recent transit oriented development law passed at the state level, is there any reason why there should be neighborhood 1 designations along transit corridors, or should it all be neighborhood 2? It seems like there's a misalignment there.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
we tried out a couple different versions of this map where we had a little bit more of a corridor approach, but we were finding that the ideally like the neighborhood 1, because it allows a lot of mixed types of potential development, that the like around transit corridors, we see a potential future where that is zoned a little bit higher. And then we were finding that the hubs where the transit really comes in and out would be places of higher development.
Okay.
Can I add
So,
to that a little bit, Philip?
Yeah, please.
I think it's also part of the argument too is trying to create more hubs, as opposed to, you know, spreading it out and diluting that that neighborhood too. So that's another sort of way to think about it.
I wanted to reply to Chip's comment and or question, and just say that just as a little bit of historical review of what HAB has observed. Gosh, Jay, what's the guy's name? Carl Geiler, sorry. You know, we've had a couple different times where city council has said, hey, we want zoning that allows for more density, more housing. Carl and staff, can you guys go off and update the zoning code so that we can have what we want? And Carl goes off and makes some updates and comes to Housing Advisory Board and presents what he's found so that, you know, we can get feedback before they go to city council. And we're like, well, why can't you do something radically better than this? And Carl says, well, because the BVCP keeps us from doing that. And so kind of historically, the BVCP has been used as kind of like the, along with Title IX and the city code as like two sets of zoning regulations that have to be aligned, and the one can constrain the other. And so Carl's message was basically, well, what would you please, if you want more aggressive or more liberal, more changes to the zoning code, we have this BVCP process coming up. I'm not sure if he said this, but this has been part of the narrative of HAB for a couple of years, is we have the BVCP coming up, and if we could be rewritten so that it kind of got out of the way, so to speak, then that would go a long way towards city staff and city council being able to pass a set of zoning changes that would be more aggressive. And I think it's also worth pointing out that this is one of the few top priorities that city council has identified, is working on Title IX and the city code, which is the zoning ordinance. And so, if the BVCP gets updated and Title IX gets overhauled, there could be a lot of real change to the zoning codes. And so I know that BVCP, sorry, that this iteration may seem kind of hand wavy and aspirational, but there is kind of something sort of specific going on here, which is by backing off and not being so prescriptive, it allows the city council to do and city staff to do the work that they want to do. Does that sound true to you, Jay? And guest speaker, I forgot your name already. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, Tess, I've only been with the city for 2 years, but I think that is spot on from my.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Philip. I mean, it's basically turning it from a regulatory document into a vision document, setting the vision and relying on these other tools to actually regulate land use. So yeah, it's a whole different approach, and it provides additional freedom, I guess. And thank you for not ascribing that view to Carl specifically, because
yeah, sorry,
you could get in trouble for that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. If Danny were here, he would be raising his hand and he would say, well, just remember that the BVCP is not binding law and nobody has to listen to it. And I can't remember under which context he's most adamant about saying that. There's some case law that relates to this, but when you have a four-body review and everyone agrees that it's the law and that we're going to follow it and respect it, then it behaves that way. And so anyways, so.
I appreciate your comments, Philip. At a very high level, what I'm hearing here is that, the comprehensive plan acts as a check on the city of Boulder's ability to change its zoning code. And the comprehensive plans written by the county and the city. So isn't this just a way of the county to act as a check on the city's ability to do its own zoning?
The original purpose and most comprehensive plans in most cities don't have a county and city four-body approval process. This was originally instituted in the 70s because of the city's desire to keep a urban growth boundary and have the open space land. So because it's the valley and not just the city, the county does have some say, because that was the way we were able to slowly acquire all that open space in the city over these years by that agreement that the county wouldn't do leapfrog development into those areas. The county actually, unless the policy says city and county, the county doesn't have a say in that policy. The land use kind of similarly, other than the land use that's in the county, and that's why you'll see rural lands as one of the designations, and that's all the rural lands in the county that are not our city-owned open space. And that's up to their purview.
So another one kind of specific thing I'm excited about. I don't remember if this has been in previous plans, but priorities 91 and 92 are local food production and access and urban agriculture. And I'm very interested in participating in being a consumer in regenerative farming food products. I was kind of curious if there's any provision for housing for farm workers.
Yes.
Yeah, like I know agri-villages is kind of a buzzword that gets thrown around. Is there any how does that get accommodated?
Yeah, so in our agricultural workforce support policy, we talk about, I believe, housing support for agricultural workers. The how still has not been worked out, but the goal is there.
Okay. So sorry. That bullet point, agriculture workforce support, there's a paragraph in the BVCP
Yes. Yeah.
about that. Okay.
Yep. I think it must be around those same policies. It must be policy 90 something, but you'll find it in that same area.
Okay. Oh yeah. 96.
Thank you. Did you have a
Okay,
question?
yeah, it says increased housing opportunities. I just wonder if the rural land designation, because that's where the agriculture would happen, right? That's what rural is for.
Well, we have a lot of agriculture on our open space lands as well.
Oh, right.
But there is agriculture on that rural lands. Maybe some would happen that those lands are county owned and county zoned. So, we are working closely with the county and they have goals with their agricultural support as well. And, we're working with them to figure out the how in the next years. But it's definitely something that we've heard from the community and has been on our minds.
Okay. It just seems, just at first glance, I'm like looking at page 98, rural lands, and I don't see anything about housing in there for farm workers. So that might be an omission that might need some attention.
Okay. Good note. Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit towards revisions and the permanently affordable housing goals? If there have been revisions since the last iteration?
I think that policy reads pretty much the same. I think our metric number is still the same of 15%.
We didn't change it.
Okay.
It was rewritten, but it's basically the same intent.
And he was wondering if he's allowed to speak.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, question of like the 2017 plan, like just thinking about like what the potential impact of this one could be, like, to the extent what was like the most significant change in that plan, and like did it kind of bear fruit? Like did it have a concrete impact?
Yeah, Tess?
Let's say you, Jay.
Back when I was a babe. No. I think that plan definitely had some metrics around. That was the first time we had the affordable housing goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we've seen strides because of this team here with getting closer to that 15% affordable housing. So like instituting the Mod Housing Factory and our affordable housing program, both rental and ownership, and all of those things, I think blossomed potentially out of that policy. I don't want to give too much credit to the comp plan, but I think that was a big move that was seen.
So that's where the 15% originated in that plan?
No, it was, sorry. but that it used to be 10%. So I can't remember exactly when. I'd have to go back and look at the histories. But we increased it to 15 to include middle income component. So middle income was definitely one of the big changes in 2017, bumping it up to 15%. That update had all the same aspirations of simplifying and making it more readable. And so if you can go back and read the different iterations. But I think it was also a very different political climate in 2017, and the composition of planning board and city council was very different. So there was sort of a limit as to how far the comp plan could sort of push.
I think, sorry, another one is the climate initiatives as a department came out of a big push of that plan was climate stuff. It was right after the flood, and there was a lot of concern around climate, as there still is, but kind of the whole department and work plan of climate initiatives came out of that previous plan.
Jessica, do you speak a little bit more about the, so allowing commercial and residential, balancing out residential and commercial? What do you mean by the balance? What's the?
I mean, I guess balance maybe is, but a community hub is where we see this maybe happening to the biggest degree, which so our primary uses there would be both residential, multi-unit and group living types, and then commercial with retail, personal services, and food and beverage being primary. And then you have all these supporting other uses. But, I think a lot of those areas that on the map are kind of our community retail areas with I guess Alpine Balsam, but also like down where we have like kind of big box grocery stores and other strip mall type development. And the thought there is opening up to some residential and maybe retaining those businesses and especially the grocery stores, but also allowing there to be some upbuilding so that people live close to those essential services, and potentially, depending on who owns it, like some parking lot fill in, but we'll see.
Are you asking more about the neighborhood one and introducing commercial into a place where it may not exist today?
I mean, that's a part of it too. It sounded like you were kind of attaching those.
So neighborhood one, you already see examples. We heard from community members about like someone having a bakery out of their garage that there's line out the door for bread somewhere in the neighborhoods that exists somewhere.
Off of where 19th turns into 29.
Love it.
And we have like Alpine Modern, that little and those we hear from community members over and over again how like essential they are to their enjoyment of the neighborhood, and we just want to allow that to organically happen potentially in more places throughout the city, to create those little. Initially in our plan, we had a local hub designation, which was like a even smaller scale, like hub than community that had commercial and residential. But when we brought that to the community, everyone was like, we love the idea, but we don't know where to put these. And it also felt like maybe overly prescriptive rather than just kind of allowing businesses and people to choose and flourish where they are.
I mean, that definitely feels like that's well on the way to the 15-minute neighborhood, both family friendly, whatever that's called. Philip has his hand raised.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the guy with the flannel shirt.
Brendan.
Brendan. Hi, Brendan. I'm Philip. It's nice to meet you. Who's to your right?
I'm David.
Hey, David. Anyways, Brendan, your question sort of raised a couple thoughts in my mind about the BVCP. I actually kind of heard in my mind, I heard David Adamson just jumping out of his shoes, screaming that no, the BVCP doesn't matter because he worked so hard to get some specific language in there related to housing pilots. And then he went and tried to execute a housing pilot and just couldn't get it off the ground because of all the red tape. And it's too bad because it was a super cool project in a really hipster neighborhood, and it would have really added value to the community. And so I know, so I mean, people have a lot of feelings about the value of the BVCP as a document, as whatever it is. Another example that sort of surfaced for me was thinking about the airport neighborhood campaign, which frequently quoted. There was a section in the transportation buried in the transportation section about how when the next time the airport is going to have a community review process, that it would be assessed for housing potential. And that's something that a former city council person worked really hard to get some language in there. And so everyone on that campaign quoted that thing often. And so in some ways, that little bit of verbiage in there shaped some narrative in Boulder around that issue. But I guess my question that I'm circling towards is, are there examples of that kind of specific language in this document, or has that been kind of weeded out? Do you have people lobbying for very specific things they want put in here? Or has there been kind of more deliberate
Have you read paragraph 76, Philip, about the airport?
I have not actually. Is that in there?
It sounds pretty pro-airport to me. The city's talking about building relationship, or the city is forward-looking as aircraft electrification becomes reality. So the city's going to support electrification, I guess, at the airport of electric airplanes when that happens.
Okay, I as a yeah, whatever. I'm wearing my Hab hat tonight, so maybe I shouldn't comment on that.
I mean, I think there is to be critical of this process and not of any specific person, but just this process is like a lot of these policies in here are just very like, I don't know, general generic stuff. Housing diversity and supply. The city promotes a full spectrum of housing types and price points throughout the city that enable people to remain in the community as their needs, incomes, and household compositions change over time. I just don't know if that's like a policy. It's just like a statement. And perhaps, it's like, why do we have this Boulder Comprehensive Valley Plan? I think it's to serve as a check on development and the city's ability to change the zoning code. And I guess the read I'm getting on this is we're making it just more generic, general language. Like there's nothing the city can do to violate that policy on 79. And I don't know if we're trying to water down the comprehensive plan so that it doesn't restrict the city's ability to develop, then perhaps it's a good thing. I just think it begs to ask, why do we have a comprehensive plan to begin with?
Well, Chip, I think that's what we're saying is it's not a regulatory document. It's not to be designed as a guardrails for what we can and can't do. It's to set the vision. What kind of community do we want to be in 20 years? And then through the zoning and all these other tools, that's how you get to the specifics.
I would just say I love this document and I enjoy reading it, and I'm super excited about the vision. And I think it's been a lot of political shift and political will to get to a point where we're like talking about all these values that were not a given 20, 40, 60 years ago at all.
ML, do you mind if we answer Philip's earlier question first? Do you have an answer for that one?
What was the question? Yeah, what was the question?
Well, so the previous comp plan had a lot of very specific things that the city wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked throughout this process with all of the subject matter experts, which are our other city departments, to really bring them along in the process and come to some compromises. And reorient the level of detail that the plan should be at. I think we will also see, as it gets closer to adoption, what comes out of the woodwork.
But it's a good observation, Philip. Yeah, there were a lot of policies that read more like this is a work plan item for the city. And a lot of those have been removed. And part of it is also a lot of those have been accomplished.
Yeah, except the housing pilots. Rest in peace.
Well, so
We'll talk about that one later.
what I would throw out there as a practice for our board, if we want to vote on a recommendation our next meeting, perhaps we focus, to offer something specific. In addition to saying like we like the plan or something like that, perhaps we focus on policy number 79, housing diversity and supply. That's probably where we're most suited to speak as a board, and propose some additional language in addition to a one sentence of the city promotes a full spectrum of housing types and price points throughout the city that enable people to remain in the community as their needs, incomes, and household compositions change over time. I'm fine with that language. I think that's fine. I don't think that's very controversial, but perhaps we want to consider adding something to that and making the recommendation that something be added to it. And I think that'd be a good place for our board to weigh in.
There was also 78 and 81 that refer to special populations.
Yeah, so 78 is housing and supports for people experiencing homelessness. And 81 is permanently affordable housing goal, and 80 is manufactured housing. And then 82 is age inclusive. So I guess there's also 77 is like housing and supportive services, which I think probably falls within our purview as well. So I think if there's anything we should debate and focus on, it should be policies 77 through 82.
I think I wouldn't mind having a paragraph that reiterated what I said about Carl Geiler's team trying to amend the zoning and how we support this revised approach so that city council and city staff can have leeway
I agree, Philip.
when changing Title IX. I mean, I know it's been kind of repeated a lot, but I don't mind reaffirming that we're on board with that because it's a major theme to this update.
And Tess, are we cutting into your presentation? I feel like we're just discussing it now.
You're welcome to start your discussion. Do you all need a refresher on the questions or just want to discuss?
Refresher on the questions.
So they are does the draft plan overall reflect the community and the Housing Advisory Board's priorities and aspirations related to housing in the Boulder Valley? What components of the draft plan does the board strongly support? And does the board recommend any revision to the draft plan? Which you were starting to get into.
I think our goal is to maybe vote on a recommendation at the next meeting. So if that's the case, our new members should weigh in on this process. We will be voting on it next month. So what I've heard from Philip, and I think what we have some consensus on is that we have, I guess, Housing Advisory Board had concerns that the prior or the existing comprehensive plan restricted the community's ability to engage in the zoning process, and the more affording the city more flexibility to change its zoning code is a positive development associated with the new draft.
Yeah, I feel like in short, the answer to one is yes. And we could add a little substance to that. Not the answer to number two is we've started discussing, and three is probably a yes, and we could probably come up with some recommendations by next time. I don't know.
Yeah, so looking at 76 municipal airport, I mean, if it's the board's position that housing should be considered as an option, then perhaps a sentence could go in there. 77, housing and supportive services. Do we have any specific thing we would want to recommend adding with regards to supportive services? Again, it's all general language. So if we're going to make a recommendation, we kind of on something more specific. One thing I would suggest all of us to consider is 79 says the city promotes a full spectrum of housing types and price points throughout the city that enable people to remain in the community as their needs, incomes, and household compositions change over time. Is there a specific housing type or price point perhaps the city should encourage? And would we want to add a sentence on the city should encourage the development of X, Y, and Z in that one, as opposed to we support everything, but is there something we want to prioritize or encourage?
I think my personal opinion is that everything is really important to having an economy that functions, right? But we are calling out specific communities elsewhere. I don't know. I don't see a problem with 79, but
I guess my feeling about this discussion is if we're just gonna riff and then start editing and start creating a document, that's maybe not the best use of time. Maybe we could do this offline and go back and forth through email. But it's just my 2 cents.
what if like we did for the council memo that we created earlier, Karen and I can take a stab at a first draft and circulate in, I don't know, a week and a half.
I think my concern with all that is we're supposed to engage in board business at a publicly noticed meeting when we're together. And I think we need to be mindful of open meetings laws.
Okay.
Well, we would be communicating via email, so that would be public, right?
Well, so what you would do is summarize what you heard here tonight.
Yeah.
And then share that with the group to say, does this reflect what everyone was saying? And then you would talk about it at the next meeting.
But I think if we're going to have a substantive discussion or debate about what goes in it, that has to happen at a meeting.
Yeah, Chip's right. I'm sorry, I kind of forgot that major detail.
Yeah, the burdens of being government.
But I think that's what you're doing at this meeting and the April meeting. So
yeah, I was trying to avoid doing it in the meeting in real time. Well, I'll just offer this. I'd be happy to write a paragraph about the thing about greasing the wheels for city staff and city council to improve zoning.
Or to grant the city more autonomy to revise zoning. Right. I mean, how much when planning board debates zoning, how often are you guys turning to the comp plan saying, can we do this? Can we not?
compliance with the comp plan is a part of every site review.
Yeah.
It's one of the criteria. And one of the challenges has been the maintenance.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I have been asking for, and I see that some of the council members have as well, our joint meeting with them is tomorrow night, is the implementation process and how do the policies trickle into actionable code. We don't have that. We currently do not have that, and it's, I think, been a challenge for planning board to, it's vague. It's like in general, does it meet BBCP? And you can't say no to that. It's too vague. So we're asking for more specificity.
But doesn't that
in its
give you
thinking.
more autonomy? It's sort of like a constitution. It's like, does it violate the constitution? No, then we can pass whatever law we want, as long as it doesn't violate it.
Correct.
It's not supposed to tell you necessarily what to do. It's supposed to restrict your ability.
Well, one of the roles of site review is to check the application against the criteria which are guiding the outcome. And at the end of the day, are we getting the kinds of projects we want in the city of Boulder? So, that's kind of the path that we are in the process of managing is if this criteria directs this kind of a building, is that the kind of a building we want? At the end of the day, are these the kind of buildings or public spaces or sidewalks or open areas, all of the things that are governed? And so it's difficult to relate it back to the Boulder Valley Comp Plan values if there isn't.
Because the values.
I love this, and that was gonna be my question, was this implementation, which I think, is that new in this BDCP? Has there always been an implementation sort of chapter?
I believe it's new.
I think so, and it's really very exciting because I think that is where the values begin to be accountable to outcomes. And right now we don't have that. We don't have that means, which is the whole big debate about why aren't we getting what we want? Why are there so many people that can't afford to live here? All of the issues that have addresses. The whole debate with Area 3, can we supply what we need? I think that they're very interconnected with what are those, like you said, the houses are out here somewhere, but there's got to be a little root. There's got to be something that triggers a relationship between the value and the actionable use standards or zoning standards. And I think that is going to be a big part of the discussion tomorrow night, just because it's new and it gives us an opportunity to say, okay, we know that this is an issue. Let's try to give it some direction.
I think your perspective is very helpful. I mean, it's sort of the opposite of what we were talking about just now. Is you're saying like the processes you go through say you must consult with it, and is this consistent? And if it's so vague, it's like, how do you check that box as part of that process?
I don't think that planning board necessarily, I can't speak for, any personal opinions, but in our process, I don't think that there is a challenge with the fact that it's aspirational. The thing is, how does that aspirational actually hit the pavement, as it were?
So like,
and it's hard to trickle it down.
Well, ML, so if you're reviewing a proposition to build some sort of housing, and you turn to the comp plan and it says the city promotes a full spectrum of housing types and price points throughout the city that enable people to remain in the community as their needs, incomes, and household compositions change over time. Are you basically saying like that gives you absolutely nothing to work with? Like
the way it's currently referred to is the applicant and the staff will identify the Boulder Valley Comp Plan values, policies that are being supported by the project. In other words, it's giving us that.
But you could say that
I agree.
for any project,
I
correct?
absolutely, which is why we're looking for roots. We're looking for a trickle down, and I love this implementation. I think that's where the power is gonna be to the comp plan. Is it gonna be able to accomplish these aspirational goals? I think there has to be a relationship between, it's just kind of like, as a parent, right? You want your child to be kind. What things you put in place to be able,
Yeah.
you know, and one is you model behavior, you know, so there are actionable things that can be referenced
So
down
what-
here.
What I would suggest to our board is like, if we put together a 2-page memo, my concern is like, it's gonna get lost in the weeds with this 100-page report, all the different boards that are commenting on this. And if we could come up with like very specific language, like 1 or 2 sentences to add into here, and that's our recommendation, I think that sends a much stronger message that the powers that be would hear. And for example, I'll just throw this out here. Paragraph 79 says the city promotes a full spectrum of housing types and price points throughout the city that enable people to remain in the community as their needs, incomes, and household compositions change over time. Housing Advisory Board recommends the following sentence be added to paragraph 79. And I'm open to discussing that, but I feel like that's a prime place
Well,
for us to
what are you
land.
specifically trying to get at? Like,
Yeah, I
what-
think the city should prioritize housing types for low and middle income people. And is there a way we can say that that's more, I mean, I think that's pretty specific, but like, is there a way we can frame that like attached housing or dense housing, townhomes?
Isn't that in
Condos.
79 or?
But is that like 81 specifically talks about affordable housing?
Well, 81 speaks about permanently affordable housing goal, the 15%. That speaks to affordability, i.e. like deed restricted or,
Yeah.
whereas I think 79 speaks more to housing types.
Mhm.
And I think we all know, even if we're looking at like free market, like the townhomes are gonna be more affordable than the single family house typically. Like, are there housing types that we wanna recommend? And like, I would like to, personally, I would like to see Boulder, I would like to see in Boulder more free market housing that's smaller and more affordable for those who don't qualify. There's a lot of people who don't qualify for the permanently affordable housing programs in this town, and the only other option is $1 million single family house. So is there a housing type that we want to encourage the development of? I just think that's
The diversity of housing types.
Yeah, that's like.
Actually, Chip,
like-
to your point, there's the one thing I was looking when I first read this was, you know, and I don't even know how to address this, but you know, we never talk about the housing market per se and how to make it a healthy housing market. And you know, 79, it could say something along the lines of increased housing supply, but it doesn't actually say increased housing supply. It just says a full spectrum of housing types. So, and I don't know how you have a full spectrum of price points without a market that sort of provides that. And we have a market that's totally lopsided and distorted in a variety of unhealthy ways.
And I think that's great, Philip. I don't know if we have to get in the weeds on type, but to ML's point, if they're sitting there doing a site review and there's this acre property and someone's proposing they put in 2 massive penthouse condos and they point to 79, they say, well, one of the city's goal here is increased housing supply. So maybe something with 4 units would be preferable or something like that. Like, how do we maximize the number of homes in the city of Boulder? And I think that's our biggest problem in this town is we don't build new housing units.
I'll just point out 79 does not say build new housing units.
No, it doesn't. And that's something maybe we recommend they add. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I was suggesting. Yeah.
I thought, Tess, in your presentation, you mentioned that there is somewhere where it references increasing housing supply, and that was the first time it ever did that.
Yes. If maybe that language was taken out of that policy recently.
It was in there.
I thought it was
looking
Would it be
too.
in like the land use section or?
Okay. And I apologize, these policies have been through like a lot of iterations, but I know that that was part of the policy, and I will definitely bring that back to my team.
I thought you were saying something along the lines of like the current draft has a restriction on density that is going away.
Yes, it is. So that's in the land use section. And I also want to say that the former land uses had basically density limits in one sentence, and now the new land uses describe a lot more of like the feel and like the middle housing types we're wanting. So there might be a little bit more of using both policy and land use when making these decisions, but I think also your comments are very valid.
Well, to Philip's point here too, without, picking winners and losers, when we went on that tour yesterday of this conversion of an office building to apartments, they were all high-end luxury apartments. It was not dense, low-income housing by any means. But it creates new housing units, and that takes people perhaps out of more affordable single family homes. That opens up housing, then that person maybe comes out of a condo, and then that person comes out of BHP. Like, it creates housing supply and opens up space for more people, even in lower income brackets. So I don't know if we have to wade into like a classism or typology debate, but I like where Philip is going with this, which is, and I think it's a very powerful statement for us to make, which is add a very short sentence in paragraph 9 or 79 stating the city should prioritize increasing housing supply.
For what it's worth, I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And I also wonder about
Let me find it.
like whether you could say something about like in parallel about reducing the obstacles or burdens that prevent building new housing, like kind of, because the issue is not just like we need to build, but also we need to like remove the obstructions to being able to.
Like the development review process,
Yeah.
streamline that a little bit.
So yeah, like something about, reducing
Administrative,
bureaucratic, whatever.
And then when the planning board does their site review, they're gonna be like, well, we can't deny this. It says we should get rid of administrative burdens, which we are.
One of the things you mentioned was the idea of housing square footage maximums. And that has been a conversation that has never gotten any legs for some reason. But if you say, you can't build houses bigger than this in the city, that starts to produce the smaller houses that potentially have an audience that has a more affordable end product.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't know if we're in the place here or if this document is in the place to like impose square footage requirements.
But when you're talking about increased housing supply and maybe add various sizes.
But I guess what I'm saying though is if we put that in there, that sends the message to the policymakers at B when writing the zoning code. Well, should we approve, this transportation corridor density zoning change? And they look at the comp plan, it says we should increase housing supply. The answer is, yeah, that's consistent with the Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan. Because, we don't want to cut short like the democratic process where people weigh in on zoning and have this is supposed to be I think a higher level document, but it's also, like you're saying, it should give a goalpost. And I think increasing housing supply, that's a very tangible goal. People know what that means. And when they're developing a zoning code and they say, well, should there be 1,000-foot maximum or a 1,200-foot maximum? Look at the comp plan. I mean, you can still debate that and have public comment and all of that, but it says we want to increase housing supply. Well, which one's going to increase the housing supply more? So that's, I love this idea.
So one of the things that has happened in applications and projects coming through planning board have been the very large student housing. And so they're bringing forth thousands of bedrooms, housing for thousands of people. It's one demographic, right? It's students, and generally they're high end. So the idea that yes, housing is being increased and is being increased by a lot on those student housing projects. We're seeing some very large populations getting housed, but it's a population.
I hear that, but like,
Does that open that up for?
it opens it up. Like, yeah, it might be this luxury housing that the college kids whose wealthier parents are paying for it. Those kids might be moving out of the cheaper houses.
See, that's
around
the logic,
campus.
but that is not what happens at the grassroots.
Well, I don't think the university's getting bigger.
I don't know. They came
They came here a while
here,
back.
right, and showed us all the housing that they're gonna be providing for their staff.
We also can't discriminate on who's living in.
I mean, all I'm saying is that statement, it's, you know, there is a lot of housing being built right now. There is a lot of housing being built. It's just being built for a specific population. So we still have middle income that is not getting served, which I think ends up being kind of in the crosshairs of most people's thinking is like.
Well, that's why I like keeping the existing sentence in 79, as it says we promote diversity of all types for all people, but we should increase it. Like, that's what I want to add.
So just to get consensus, does everyone feel comfortable with a statement that we support increasing supply?
Yeah, the city of Boulder or the city of Boulder prioritizes increasing housing supply. I mean, that's kind of how things are written here, right? The city commits, the city support. The city support, the city values, the city manages, the city and county collaborate.
And then to get to the statement of we should encourage certain types.
I mean, maybe we want to stay
Like
out of it.
attached product type, or do you want to?
I feel like that's a technical question. Like,
Yeah.
if someone finds a way to make a bunch of single family homes in a dense
Tiny
space
homes,
as a
yeah.
condo or cottages,
And
like,
maybe that gets to the land use section
Yeah.
as well. Okay.
I was thinking about the obstacles, just because like I feel like a lot of what is preventing building the smaller ones is like you're not allowed to build them. Like you were traditionally allowed to build the larger houses, and single family homes were prioritized, but there were all kinds of obstacles to prevent. Whereas, you know, if you want a diversity of housing, that means you have to open up what you're able to build.
so I think one sentence is the city supports increasing housing supply. That's a very simple sentence.
Chip, I don't think that was Lauren's question though. I think she was just.
Well, no, but to answer her question, that's the next one.
Do we want a statement saying we encourage a certain type of development?
Like the city prioritizes would be the next sentence after that.
I don't think so. I think it would just be something about increased supply, honestly. I mean, it's coupled there with a diversity of types. So
I do see the value to building, even if we're building luxury housing, like where there was I don't want to see the city tearing down low income housing and replacing it with luxury housing. But if we're building more luxury housing, there's going to be cash in lieu, there's going to be additional tax revenue that's going to free up, upward mobile people, and open up space below. So, building all sorts of housing, there's so much factors that go into it, but increasing the supply, I think that gives a goalpost when policymakers are making decisions, whether it be planning board or city council or staff. Do we want to make the transit corridor 300 feet from the roadway or 400 feet from the roadway? Well, what's going to increase the housing supply? It would be 400 feet, right? Like, I think that gives a very goalpost, like when you're making decisions, do we want to cap this neighborhood at 1,000 square feet per unit or 1,500? 1,000 would increase the housing supply. So I think that is like a broad aspiration that doesn't like tie anyone's hands, but it can factor into a lot of decision making across the board. And I think it's short and concise, which makes it almost more powerful.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement with that. I wanted to circle back to the other thing you were talking about is there is 81 is capital A affordable, deed restricted affordable. Do we want to suggest anything about naturally occurring affordable housing, middle income housing, anything like that?
Middle income is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's I view that paragraph as referring to income qualified housing, like either deed restricted or affordable. I think what you're suggesting is like free market housing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want a
Yeah,
paragraph?
I'd be up for a sentence or two in 79 addressing that. I think to kind of like mix that in with 81 feels like the wrong place for that.
I
But
agree.
yeah, I think when you say in 79, if you say something about we'd like to see supply increased and improved naturally occurring affordability. Those two things just are coupled together in my sensibilities.
How would we phrase that? Like, if naturally occurring is like, I don't know, I know what you're talking about.
That's the technical.
Is that
term.
the technical term?
Yeah, that's what
As opposed to like free market?
Yeah, it's naturally occurring affordable housing. NOAA.
I think free market is super problematic term because I guess naturally occurring also is in its own way, but
I mean, no
market
house
rate
is
market rate would be another way of saying it.
Another way to think about this, 79 is about housing types. It's not about income.
Yeah.
Whereas 81 is about income.
I mean, we're basically, when we say naturally occurring or whatever, we're talking about small houses or condos or townhouses, right? There's not going to be a naturally occurring affordable free market house on a 1 acre lot with one house in Boulder. So is there a typology we want to prioritize? I mean, it's sort of.
Anything that's brand new is not going to be naturally affordable anyway, to be honest.
I think you're right.
Unfortunately.
Except with regard to size.
Yeah, but it's still going to be like.
It'll be more affordable.
I mean, size is the market's answer to
Yeah.
affordability.
Yeah.
It'll be more affordable.
Smaller.
Yeah.
And whether they're attached, like plexus.
But I think if we just stick with housing supply, that almost accomplishes that, because like, how are we going to increase it? No one's proposing that we, build condos in Chautauqua, but like what does increased housing supply mean? It usually means taking a place where there's one house now and putting in 2 or 3. That's the reality of it, right? When we go to bulldoze a house and put in a new complex, we're putting in increased supply. I know that one recommendation is very short, but I think it's also very powerful.
I'm cool with it.
I think it's very powerful. Like, that's sort of headline worthy. I don't think the Boulder has ever committed to increasing its housing supply before. Has it?
No.
Maybe we don't want to dilute that with anything else and just leave it that.
Yeah, we usually dilute our statements with lots of words.
I guess the only thought of, what you could say in terms of allowing different types of housings, like something like all of the above housing strategy to increase housing or something along those lines of like indicating that you want to open up kind of any type of increased housing that is possible and kind of not limit options. That to me is like equivalent to the naturally occurring.
So all housing types.
Yeah, all housing types, or
that's kind of already in there with the
something
first
like
sentence.
And I'll just note, like, Boulder has a lot of single family and a lot of apartment and not a lot of in between. So when the statement says all, like, create housing supply for all types. Like that's, I guess, where we're lacking right now. So that would, and when that policy is there right now, it's implying let's build the middle to like have all housing types covered.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, how do we increase the housing supply in Boulder? We're not going to be building more single family houses that won't accomplish that. It's by inference or by necessity, it means denser housing. And then like apartments versus condos, people don't really build apartment. I mean, some buildings are built to be apartments, but like I rent a condo. You know, it was built as a condo, but it's being rented. Like, you know,
I feel like a lot of the lower density attached product is market driven too, though. And that's why it's not being built, right?
Say that again?
Market driven, like it's just really hard to make them pencil.
Single family?
No. Attached, like townhomes, like the ones on Violet. There's a lot on Broadway that are currently being built, but they're all $2 million, right?
Yeah. But it's relatively more affordable if they build a bunch of single family.
Yeah, or even like, again, this is an aspirational document. If we're talking about someone wants to split their home, you see a lot of this in Boulder where it used to be a nice expensive house downtown and it's been turned into condos inside. That's something that would go to planning board probably if they're doing a major gut of a building and additions to turn up, you know, an old house into a condo complex. If planning board is sitting there and it says the city supports increasing housing supply, that weighs in favor of granting this modification to the property, right? They're trying to take a house that was with 5 bedrooms that was built for one person and turn it into a condo. That would increase the housing supply.
These are the things that get made possible and promoted through the flexibility in the neighborhood designations, land use map, and in the uses allowed in zones. I think the transit corridor we haven't begun to see how that's going to play out, because basically those are small parcels. So we're talking duplexes. That's all you can get is 2 units. Duplexes are 2 small houses on that. And that's a lot of properties could be impacted by that. And those big developers, big profits are not going after those small projects. So talking about naturally what's the market going to do, because we've got these new, and this has just happened last year, these new upzoned opportunities in what were single unit zoning that would definitely play into we're creating more housing and a range of housing, which is kind of, I love your conversation. I think that you are spot on in less said becomes more powerful if it's something that, oh, there was a gap, there was a little blind spot here.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is the city supports increasing housing supply. That says one thing. If we start adding stuff to it, then that creates room for debate. People say, oh, they're prioritizing this demographic over this demographic, and maybe it just doesn't ever find its way into plan.
Can I ask a higher level question? To give Tess what she wants in these key questions, I wonder if it would suffice to just be like, for number 1, yes. For number 2, love the new land use approach. Number 3, we'd love to see let the writers and crafters come up with something, but maybe we could just make a statement saying, hey, we'd love to see something about increased housing supply in 79. And then, our work is done here this evening. That's sort of one thought.
I would propose a final debate and vote at the next meeting and allow the public to weigh in on this. But a resolution from the Housing Advisory Board that states the Housing Advisory Board recommends the city council and city manager add a sentence to policy 79 in the draft Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan stating the city supports increasing housing supply. I think it just sends a very clear and concise
So I
message.
think they are looking to understand what other components we're supportive of, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think a memo identifying, I think for number three, if
Okay.
number three could be increased housing supply, right? But I think we do need to answer the other two questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want to get lost in the weeds. If there's one sentence they're going to read from us, what should it be?
I don't have anything new to add. I'm still, I'm happy to help as I've offered previously.
Stab at a draft.
Yeah. Yeah, I think to what you're saying, Chip, I think both can be said. I think there can be one really clear, simple statement, but I also think we can address some other bullet points with the discussion from tonight to answer number 2.
But we can keep it very clear
Mhm.
in the letter.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're gonna have additional things, we need to talk about it tonight. It shouldn't be through emails
I
and
feel like
drafts
we've
of
talked
letters.
about number 2.
What components? Well, let's list them. I mean, if we're proposing something concrete, in theory, the public should have an opportunity to come to our meeting and comment before we vote to recommend, and it should be on our agenda for the next meeting. So I think we
That was
should.
the plan.
Yeah, so I think we should try to have a shell of what we're gonna vote on at the next meeting to put on the agenda and put the public on notice. So one is, we're gonna recommend the draft plan be amended to add the following sentence to paragraph 79. The city supports increasing housing supply. What else do we want to include in that resolution?
Well, I think it'd be nice to answer the first question with an affirmative because the city staff asked us that specific question. So we could say yes to number 1. And then I don't know, do we need it? Do we so the question is what do we want to do for number 2?
Is there any specific policy points? I think we can articulate support, and then say additionally, the housing advisory supports.
Yeah, I mean, for me, to me, that for number 2, the thing that I want to say is that we support the land use, the approach to the land use, and we strongly support it. I don't think it needs to be much more complicated than that. I had kind of previously offered to go into detail about how the previous comp plan restricted innovation in the zoning codes, but I mean, I'd be happy just to say we really like the current approach, but we could do something more detailed if you wanted.
I think that works.
If it feels helpful. And if people are interested in doing that.
If people took time to review it and came to the next meeting with a couple of points that they felt they strongly support, and we kind of shared them, and people could, and the ones that people agree on, we could consider listing separately.
So I think what we've found is that these open dialogues are kind of challenging to get consensus right at a meeting. So I think if we could take a stab at a first draft circulate it, people can redline it, and then we can come to the meeting and discuss and then adopt.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. I don't know what the rules are for the open meeting was the only thing, but assuming it's within the rules, I'm totally good with
Your
that.
HAB email is.
It's a public record anyway, so
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah, but
That
that's
speaks
not
to
a-
open records and not open meetings.
But we would be discussing and adopting the letter at the next meeting.
Yeah, you just need to make sure the communication is one way. So you can't have an exchange back and forth because that's not out and open in the public.
My understanding of our open meetings laws is that for this type of board, we can meet one-on-one to discuss policy. But if there's three HAB members present, then it's a meeting and it needs to be open to the public and noticed. So.
Can I
think-
make a comment about this? This was one of the things that was super unintuitive to me when I first joined HAB. So it's kind of nice that we're circling on around this. And I kind of made a mistake earlier because I'm part of another board where it's not a city council related anything, but we're really trying hard to avoid the kind of meeting like this where a bunch of people gather together and we like riff and try to edit a document in real time with each other because it feels not very efficient. And so I was kind of
Philip, government's not efficient. It
Yeah,
has to be
no,
transparent. open.
that's not my point. That's not my point. I'm just saying it's easy to think, oh, well, this would be a lot easier to do offline. We'll send drafts back and forth. But I think what is possible based on what Jay just said is if Lauren, you do what you just said, come up with a draft, send it out. We all do our homework and come to the next meeting with proposed edits. We do another revision and then we can vote on something then.
Are we, what do you mean by one-way communication?
So as.
Can we
do that-
redline
for
a
that
document? Can we
question.
work in Google Docs? Like.
Cannot work in Google
No,
Docs.
Google Docs, okay.
All right. So exactly what Philip just described. So you send out what you heard as a draft. Everybody works on it on their own and then comes to the meeting and shares their feedback and you finalize it at the meeting.
Could there
So
be,
no red lines emailed around.
Preferably not.
You can't really
could there be a step before that where, now that we had this great presentation, everybody knows how to access it. But he didn't already, could send a one-way email to Lauren saying, hey, I want to include this point and this point, in case you didn't hear that in our discussion tonight. And then she sent,
Or like if
does a
Philip
draft
wants-
and sends it out, is that still considered a one-way?
It's getting a little gray there.
Okay.
Wait, if Philip wants to draft the response for number 2, can he email that to us?
It can, I mean.
To the whole HAB?
The way I
email?
view it, if we're talking about like logistical stuff, like what time our meeting is starting or something, or it's snowing. I don't think that's considered like policy debate, so we can send emails. But if we're talking about like a substantive policy we're debating, it should be one-on-one with one person. Like you can talk to me, you can talk to Corinne, you can talk to Phil, but you can't be sending it out to the group and have an ongoing email chain because that's considered a meeting. And it needs to be open to the public. So like, that's why like city council, they do email back and forth and debate policy, but they do it on the hotline. And anyone can sign up and be on the email chain.
Okay.
So if we're basically collaborating as a body, as opposed to one-on-one over coffee, and certain boards can't even do one-on-one, but I think ours can.
Like a written guidance document on this is really helpful to know. There's gotta be rules.
You're gonna get city clerk's office is gonna go over.
It's the open meetings law.
Cool.
CRS 24/6
So the other thing to keep in mind too, so we try to adhere to this, but you're not making a recommendation, or you're not making a decision, I'm sorry. You are making a recommendation. This applies mostly to a decision that could potentially be appealed. So I'm just saying.
Anything we do can be appealed because we're an advisory board.
Yeah, sorry.
But someone could try.
They could try, But anyway, I mean, I don't want to, I try to be as open as possible. I mean, I don't want to say you can't do anything. Or you need to adhere to the rules closely. Because you're purely advisory.
I think, you know, the overall purpose of these open meetings laws is transparent government and making sure that, you know, process is followed. And I think if we can debate when we're together to make sure, you know, people aren't being sidelined and the public can weigh in if they want, that's just a good thing to aspire to. I realize if we were a private business, Google Docs is way more efficient. But we're not a private business, we're the government right now.
So I want to make sure though that
Well, I think
anything has been said tonight for you to have enough information so that we're not doing this again next
Yeah,
month.
I mean, I think what we heard was pretty clear.
I guess we know on this increasing housing supply.
Yeah.
We support the plan and we can hammer out the concrete language, people, if they want to come with stuff. But I think if there's other like specific points in there, we should probably mention it, or do we just want to leave the other stuff out and limit it on? I mean, I think I would be in favor of just keeping this concise and clear. Because I think the goal of increasing housing supply in Boulder is a pretty that's a change.
Yeah, like to give one example, I asked a question about housing for agriculture. You know, I assume Tess made a note, and if she wants to raise that in whatever follow-up meeting she has, she can go for it. But I don't feel like our board needs to like debate that and agree to some statement about that, because I haven't really thought about it. I don't know if anyone else has really thought about it. It doesn't seem like the sort of thing that needs to be prioritized. And so, you know, like, I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, I think to Philip's point, like we all could have certain opinions. I think if our board says one sentence, it sends a very strong message. And again, we're just advisory. And my concern is if we spend a 2-page paper or something, like it'll just get lost in the weeds. Especially on this one, because we're asking to like amend the plan as opposed to like tell council what policy decisions they should make in the future or something like. So I would support a 1 sentence.
Do you mean the 1 sentence just for 3, or just 1 sentence for 1 through 3?
I would support a resolution that says Housing Advisory Board recommends to the city council and city manager that policy 79 in the draft Boulder Valley Comprehensive Plan be supplemented with the following sentence. The city supports increasing housing supply.
Tess, do we answer your number 1 and number 2, or does that need to be more official?
If we want city council to hear it though from us, I think we need to answer 1 and 2.
Yeah, I guess I'm in disagreement with Chip on this. I think we ought to address 1 and 2 and 3.
Okay. If we're going to do that, then can we put that recommendation first, 3 first, increasing housing supply first, and then address the other stuff after it?
There's a way to do that and make it sound coherent.
I can, but what I have to say as a private citizen is not as powerful as the board after we debate.
I'm just saying you also can't.
I'm sure
Have you done it already?
he's gonna have things to say about the airport, but maybe not the board. That's not to call you out, Philip. But
I said what I wanted to say about number 2. I'm not sure if I should repeat myself. I feel like we've been repeating ourselves over and over again. So,
We got it.
We move on.
Well, I think we can articulate an affirmative answer to 1.
I think
that's also repeated. That's been said several times.
Is there anything specific we want to listen to? We've heard from Philip. I'm hoping it's the other people.
Bring it.
List things. Or do we want to just keep it with that 79 change?
Well, let's get a draft in front of everybody, we can bring it back and we can have final discussion next meeting. Does that work?
There's one other one that we haven't talked about. I thought I heard mentioned in one of the 80s, something about manufactured housing. That seemed very strange to me to have that be in the comp plan to prioritize manufactured housing. Do we have an opinion about that? I do, but does the board?
So we had recently, someone came in, we've looked into manufactured housing. There's several mobile home parks in the city of Boulder. And one of the mobile home parks in North Boulder, the city's been going through, I guess, a renovation project. So it has been on the city's agenda. These mobile home parks tend to be a large source of housing for Latin
Is that what it
community.
means, or does it mean modular
Let me pull it
construction?
up. Let me pull it up. It says manufactured housing. The city and county support the protection and rehab of existing manufactured homes.
Oh, so,
communities.
okay, so
Yeah.
trailer parks.
So over the last year, my eyes have been really opened. to the fact that
Okay,
it's-
sorry,
yeah,
I
no.
thought it was talking about modular, and I
Yeah.
thought that would be weird for the comp plan to talk about construction techniques, but sorry.
So I think there's a sense that, like, you know, we do have these historic mobile home parks and they provide a unique sort of housing for a unique demographic. And I think the city feels, and I think most people on the board agree, that that is something we want to continue to protect and support. So I don't really see the need to make a change there.
Is there any others that caught your eye?
That was the one that stuck out, and again, I misinterpreted it, so sorry about that.
No, no.
Be great to have time to review and digest it further. And I don't know where we landed on the idea of emailing.
Yeah, I mean, I
Lauren,
haven't
like,
read it
some
yet, because I
things.
didn't know, I didn't know about it,
Here's
so.
what I'm interested in. She can put together a draft based on that.
Yeah,
Totally
I
happy
mean,
with that.
If you have questions too, feel free to reach out to me. Or Tess.
I think maybe what we should all endeavor to do is, it sounds like we're sort of in agreement on this. A recommended revision of 3 is to increase housing supply. We're all in agreement on some sort of sentence on 1. We support, you know, the plan
Yes.
reflects the
The answer is
community
yes.
housing, yes. And then I think we should all come prepared if we want to propose identifying specific components that we strongly support. Maybe if there's something that stands out to you, we can all show up with a short list. Discuss that next week. We have time to debate this, right?
I think that's what Lauren said.
Yeah.
That was the
Sounds
plan.
good.
Okay. Tess, should we be asking you any other questions, or do you have anything else to share with us?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for letting me present and this good discussion, and yeah, I have increased housing supply highlighted in bold in my notes.
Good.
We mentioned that we think there should be more.
Okay, I'll get that too. But no, thank you all, and that's super valuable feedback that I will for sure convey to the team, and I hope you all convey to planning board and council, and we'll keep this moving.
I am impressed with this streamlining and condensing it. I think y'all went from like 200 pages to 100 pages or something, and
Yeah.
a zillion policies to less.
Yeah,
Nice job.
thank you.
thanks for spending your evening with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all. It was lovely being here, and dinner was great.
Feel free to have more.
Okay, are you ready to move on? Are you ready, Philip? Are you ready? Okay. Have work plan. So April will be welcoming new members officially, and there's going to be presentation from Boulder Housing Partners, yes, as well as an AU update. May, we're looking at, hopefully there'll be a panel or a presentation regarding the topic housing for older adults needs and options. And then in June, we have a retreat and a tour, excuse me, at co-housing in North Boulder. And then June, how's everybody feeling about canceling did I say June? I meant July. Now I'm talking about July. How's everybody feel about not canceling a July meeting? Or is there anything that we need to have on the agenda? Thoughts, opinions?
Sorry, what's the rationale for canceling a meeting in July?
Quite a few people are out of town and nothing pressing on the agenda.
Gotcha.
Many people.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember ever canceling a meeting because people were out of town or we didn't have enough. I mean, usually we have enough on the agenda, and stuff comes up, but is there a
I
precedent for that?
remember there being some cancellations and Jay said that as well.
I
I
don't love
feel like
the
it's like
idea.
once a year.
I don't love the idea of just canceling. I feel like
You want something on the agenda for July?
maybe something comes up. I think we are required to meet.
No, you're not.
What did Jay just say? We're not?
We're not
not.
required to meet.
Okay.
And just
Okay, we can-
FYI, city council and planning board take a break in July as well, just
Okay.
that matters.
That's a precedent as far as I'm concerned.
On
I
that,
also meet quite a bit more than housing advisory
I
board.
know, but yay, if they need a nudge, take them my thoughts.
I won't officially propose it yet, but think about that. Okay.
Yeah, the idea was just to throw it out there. If people aren't comfortable with it, and if there's something that people really want to talk about, absolutely, we can meet.
Jay, matters from the staff.
Can't think of anything. Any questions? Everybody listen to the council study session, March 5th? Anybody?
I listened to a little bit of it. It was pretty much the same presentation, right?
That you got?
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
Jay, were you going to say something about housing pilots? Can't remember.
No, not tonight.
Oh, not tonight. When
I'll chat
are
with
you
you
gonna-
anytime about housing pilots.
Say what?
I'll chat with you some other time about.
Oh,
housing.
okay. Yeah, okay. I thought you said something when I brought it up earlier that there was something else to say about it. Sorry.
But yeah, this is an opportunity for you guys to ask questions too about what's going on in the city, or things you might want to learn more about.
When are we getting the data for ADUs again?
That is April.
April. Sweet. Maybe we just covered that. Sorry.
Yeah, Lisa's going to come and give an overview of how we've been doing in terms of production and the changes to the regulations over the years. So we'll get all that.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Is that coming to planning board as well? The ADU update?
No. You guys got to ask
I'm gonna
for
have to come back for one more meeting.
it.
I want to see the update.
Are you staying as our liaison or are you leaving?
I am, I've been 2 years, they're usually 1 year, and I've asked for the liaison appointments to be part of our first meeting in April. And hopefully you guys can get some fresh person to the planning board. But I'm gonna come to the April meeting because I want to hear the AU presentation, so you're not totally rid of me.
You can also participate in public comments. Although who knows, last year, didn't you say you were leaving us and you showed up again and you said, I'm the liaison again?
So you're not believing me? I have no credibility.
You'll be back.
Jay, the city council planning thing tomorrow, is that live?
Yes. You can participate virtually or view it live.
It's a study session, right? There's no public participation.
There's no public comment, right? But you can watch it. I caught myself.
I'm just curious if is there like, like polling or like reliable information about like what older residents want to see on the housing front? Like, do you track that in some way beyond like comments I think can be unreliable, but like something that's more reliable?
So the comp plan did a statistical survey of all of residents of Boulder. So you could read through that. There's actually quite a bit on housing, sort of gauge people's interests, concerns. It depends what it is. So there's also a community survey that's done every year. So Boulder has lots of data.
Where is the best place to find that?
Online. But I can go over it with you, and so we'll do a sort of our own sort of onboarding exercise. So I'll give you a whole dog and pony show about the history of affordable housing and where all the resources.
It's also why you're here.
But
it's a citizens advisory board. You are the citizens.
Well, yeah, right.
We are.
I'd like to know what the pulse is.
There and ask people, yes.
Okay.
But if you
any other-
if you go to the
Yeah.
comp plan website, you'll find it in there. The comprehensive plan,
Boulderfuture.org.
boulderfuture.org.
I just have a real quick pitch. I think I made it last meeting, keep doing it. I encourage everyone to invite people to participate in public comment who have things to say. I think so what we're discussing right now, that's a good way to help us learn what the community wants, and it's a good opportunity. I think it empowers people. So if you know anyone who has opinions on housing, I think we all should encourage them to attend public comment.
Anything else from anybody else? Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Approved. Thank you, everybody. Bye, Philip.
Good night.
Bye, Philip.
Bye, Philip.